Hi folks, Seth Leipson here. Thanks for watching my monologue. In these uncertain times, you may be thinking about personal protection. If you are, I urge you to visit my friends at Guns Etc. They'll help you find the perfect protection for yourself and your family, and they can even teach you how to use it. They've been protecting Arizonans for over 33 years, and they stand for the great principles this country was founded upon. Or you can just click on gunsetcetera.com. And if you like my monologues, please subscribe to 960 The Patriots YouTube channel. Welcome back. Happy December 28th, 2020. As we count down the days to the new year, a few thoughts occur. First, I acknowledged it in one previous monologue last week and don't think it needs to be done again. That is, what a horrible year this was. The reason I want to not belabor the point is thoughts 2 and 3. Because that was the one boat we were all in together. The only thing we were in together this year. People said it was about COVID. We were all in together. No, all of us were in the boat of horribleness together. Some more than others, but we all suffered something or several things. And third, still, here we are, and there is cause to be grateful. It can always be worse. Soldiers know that. Survivors and non-survivors of 9/11 know that. Accident victims know that. A lot of people know it can always be worse. You can't say it's the worst if you can say it's the worst, Shakespeare tells us. And if all of us are being honest, we know that, too. We should not be a society of complainers. It's not what is wanted of us. More importantly, it's not what is needed of us. We have a duty of gratitude, a moral duty, not to sink, shall we say, to depression or lowering the value of top-shelf problems or anything else. Suicide, national as much as personal, is simply not our natural state or calling. Patriotism, after all, still means something here, or should. The left tells us not to question theirs, and we on the right seem to never forget its import. We may need to be reminded of it from time to time, however. As Walter Burns reminds us, patriotism is not natural. Like any kind of love, it has to be taught, even if by example as much as by instruction. He writes, patriotism means love of country and implies a readiness to sacrifice for it, perhaps even to give one's life for it. In the traditional or Spartan sense, patriots are those who love their country simply because it is their country, because it is their birthplace and the mansion of their fathers. As Alexis de Tocqueville put it in his Democracy in America, it is a kind of filial piety. But no one, not even a Spartan, is born loving his country. Such love is not natural, but has to be taught or inculcated, or somehow acquired. A person may not even be born loving himself. The authorities differ on this, but he soon enough learns to do so, and unless something is done about it, he will continue to do so, and in a manner that makes a concern for country and fellow countrymen or any other than himself difficult, if not impossible. The problem is as old as politics, and we Americans are not exempt from having to deal with it. Abraham Lincoln got at this in his beautiful eulogy of Henry Clay, saying he loved his country partly because it was his own country, but mostly because it was a free country. And he burned with a zeal for its advancement, prosperity, and glory, because he saw in such the advancement, prosperity, and glory of human liberty, human right, and human nature. He desired the prosperity of his countrymen, partly because they were his countrymen, but chiefly to show to the world that free men could be prosperous. Note what Lincoln is getting at here. Two people in different countries can be taught to love their country, but one may actually be right and one may actually be wrong or misdirected. Perhaps he should love another country rather than his own. It would depend on the organization, character, and essence of the country. To wit, a German in 1943 could be understood for loving his country. Understood, but not respected or justified. An American loving his country in 1943 should have not been only understood, but very clearly justified, as he should be today. This leads me to two things that are, I think, the best things I read this year and have read on air this year bearing, I think, repeating. Neither written any time recently. The first is from P.J. O'Rourke. He wrote it in 1989 at the time of the Berlin Wall's breach. He was teary-eyed, but knew we in the West didn't quite celebrate the end of communist control of Europe quite right, and thus didn't bury the ideology of the wall, or Marxism, quite sufficiently. He wrote, "I think there are a lot of people that don't get it. Our own President Bush, our own President Bush seems to regard the events in Eastern Europe as some kind of odd dance craze or something. When I got back to the United States, I was looking through the magazines and newspapers, and it seemed that all I saw were editorial writers pulling long faces about whither a united Germany and whence America's adjustment to the new realities of Europe. Is that the kind of noise people were making in Times Square on VE Day? I say, shut up, you egghead flapgums. We've got the whole rest of history to sweat the small stuff. And those discredited peace creeps, they can zip their soup coolers too. They think Mikhail Gorbachev is a visionary. Yeah, he's a visionary like Hirohito was after Nagasaki. We won. And let's not let anybody forget it. We the people, the free and equal citizens of democracies, we living exemplars of the rights of man, tore a new you-know-what in international communism. Their wall is breached. Their gut string is busted. The rot of their dead body politic fills the nostrils of the earth with a glorious stink. We cleaned the clock of Marxism. We mopped the floor with them. We ran the Reds through the ringer and hung them out to dry. The privileges of liberty and the sanctity of the individual went out and whipped butt. And the best thing about our victory is the way we did it. Not just with ICBMs and Green Berets and aid to the Contras. Those things, yes, and they were important, but also with Levi 501 genes. 72 years of communist indoctrination and propaganda was drowned out by a 3-ounce Sony Walkman. A huge totalitarian system with all its tanks and guns, gulag camps, and secret police has been brought to its knees because nobody wants to wear Bulgarian shoes. They may have had their soldiers and their warheads, and their fine-sounding ideology that suckered the college students and the nitwit third-worlders, but we had the fun, the freedom, and now they're lunch, and we're number one on the planet. Made me want to do a little sack dance right there in the Cold War's end zone. We're the best, we're the greatest, the only undefeated socio-economic system in the league. I wanted to get up on the wall and really rub it in. Taste the ash heap of history, you bullshit nosewipes. Close quote. But that's not what we did. Instead, we wrung our hands and worried because we were unused to winning and unused to a new ordering of the world along the lines of freedom. We were unused to something other than realpolitik. Too bad. It was a case of not understanding ideology or philosophy. One big part of that is what has led us, or too many of us, to where we are today, which leads me to the other best thing I read all year from C.S. Lewis in 1948, writing, quote, "In one way, we think a great deal too much about the atomic bomb. How are we to live in an atomic age? I attempt to reply, as you would have lived in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year, or as you would have lived in a Viking age when raiders from Scandinavia might land and cut your throat any night, or indeed as you are already living in an age of cancer, an age of syphilis, an age of paralysis, an age of air raids, an age of railway accidents, an age of motor accidents. In other words, do not let us begin by exaggerating the novelty of our situation. Believe me, dear sir or madam, you and all whom you love were already sentenced to death before the atomic bomb was invented, and quite a high percentage of us were going to die in unpleasant ways anyway. We had indeed one very great advantage, though, over our ancestors: anesthetics, and we have that still. It is perfectly ridiculous to go about whimpering and drawing long faces because the scientists have added one more chance of painful and premature death to a world which already bristled with such chances, and in which death itself was not a chance at all, but a certainty. This is the first point to be made, and the first action to be taken is to pull ourselves together. If we are going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let that bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things, praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint and game of darts, not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They may break our bodies. Any microbe can do that. But they need not dominate our minds. Hard to improve on that. But then again, I think it's hard to improve on any ancient wisdom that was truly wisdom or wise. Unlocking it today as we head into the next year, it seems to me, would be a very good New Year's resolution. It shouldn't be that hard. Resolution means, after all, the process of reducing things into simpler forms. I'm Seth Leibson. We'll be right back.